Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Ask Octopus, where we take your interesting questions from the week and we do our best to answer them. Joining me today is Ryan and Derek again. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
And just to remind you that we are continuing on our new format where we are just answering a question per video, and then we're going to post multiple videos a week. So if you're wondering why it seems like you're suddenly getting notified all the time, that's the reason why we're trying this out. It seems to be interesting. We're seeing some interesting results from analytics, but we're going to continue with it. All right. So my question for the week is, how can I enforce project standards? I'm sure you guys have gotten this question quite recently with some of your larger customers.
Yeah, I've had this question come up a few different times.
Yeah, it comes in different questions and different formats as well sometimes.
Yeah. It feels like it's always how do I always want to make sure that I have this step that's part of my process, or we always need to be able to do these 3 steps. We should always have these 3 steps, and they should never be disabled or anything like that. Seems to be kind of a recurring theme. And there's a couple of approaches that you can take to answer this particular question. I wanted to show one approach that I like to recommend, and this is what we call a trust but verify. And so what I have is I have a typical process, to do my database deployments, do my, generate everything, and then I create a Delta script, and then I check to see if auto approval will happen. And then I have a manual intervention. And so almost all of my processes that I put together, or projects that I put together, they all have this manual intervention step. And let's say as an Octopus administrator, I want to be able to enforce something like that. We've gotten a couple requests in. It's like, well, you should have permissions that prevent people from adding or removing steps or anything like that. Like, well, I mean, that's completely possible, but if you're creative enough, you could go in and you could probably circumvent a couple of those things. And it kind of gets into this like limitations and everything like that. And what we prefer is to do what we call trust but verify. So what I've put together is I've put together a process. It's a project that sits out here. And if you recall from an earlier video that I did, I have a space now called Octo Admin. And on my first, in the first one that I had is I had a step that does cancel long running tasks. I added a new one called check projects. I hope you guys like my icon. It's a teacher. He's grading your project.
Yeah, he looks nice.
And what this will do is it's going to run a PowerShell script for us, and it's going to hit the API. And then what it will do from there is, so first we'll check to see if I'm on the current space, just go ahead and skip this process. But if I'm not on the current space, get all the projects for that space and then loop through each one, and then grab the process for that. And then what it will look for is it will check to see, I have a couple of rules. So basically, if it's what I call a traffic cop project, you don't need any manual interventions. But every other project that's out there, you should see a manual intervention occur. And yet it can't be disabled. So if that doesn't happen, then I run through and I'll quote unquote fail. This will get failed. And then if that does happen, then I want to send an email when this occurs. And so I have this set up to run on a trigger. And it's not the appropriate name for the trigger because that's what happens when you copy paste, but it will run once a day at 7:05 p.m. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create the release and just show you what that looks like really quick. So this first one, everything should be just fine. I haven't disabled anything. All of my projects now have a step that has that manual intervention step. So it's going to go ahead and check the projects, and you can see it went ahead and skipped that. I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to go ahead and just disable this step. And go ahead and just rerun this. Create the release. And then I'm going to deploy it, and we should see a right highlight using our video from previously where we talked about right highlight. So now you can see, yep, I am missing the manual intervention step. And then now the notify when task is canceled is actually going to run. So what that email ends up looking like is this. It just says the project found at this location does not have an active manual intervention step. So something that an admin would want to know about, and then they could go look at the project. Maybe it's a sample project. Maybe it's something like that. They're trying something out. But basically, it's just to notify people that, hey, we don't have an active manual intervention step. You need to have one. I did realize that not every project out there will need a manual intervention step. I have a lot of infrastructure as code steps or projects. So in this API script that I put together, at the very top, I have a list of projects that I want to ignore. And I just have a list of, it's just a variable, comma separated variable that does something like that. This is one way that you could approach this. It's very much like a trust but verify. And then the nice thing about this is you can also add in your own kind of business rules. So you can have, not just manual intervention steps that you're looking for, but any number of different things that you want to be looking for. Maybe steps be done in a specific order. Like at the very top, you should always have the manual intervention step or any number of different things. It's completely up to you on how you want to write this. I will include a link to this sample PowerShell script in the description below. So hopefully it can help you out and give you some ideas on how you can write your own. Do you guys have any questions about that? It's kind of more of a demo than anything.
No, that's really cool, and that's like a good pattern for it, having that admin, either an admin project group or an admin space, depending on what version you're on. But then having that API reach out to other spaces, other projects to do the checking. And is that limited to just projects? It can check like all kinds of things. One of the customers I talk with, they were running into an issue where the same tentacle was being registered multiple times.
Yeah.
So now they have a check that goes through and basically just pulls down all of their targets and makes sure there's no duplicate based on the IP address or the host name or anything. So reduce their target count and avoided some locking during deployments through that. That's
a really good point. Yeah, I was just thinking like this from a project point of view, but yeah, you could definitely have this go through and check a number of different things to make sure it meets your standards.
Check teams, make sure teams are all in order. Yeah,
absolutely.
Users as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and if you have maybe you could have a script that checks your users against like an active list of users as well to see, hey, has someone been moved to another team? Do they still need to have access? Any number of different things that you can do.
Yeah, I really like the ignore list as well, Bob. I really like that. It's because you always need to build that into it. But yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does do the. I'm doing it by project ID as opposed to like project name. You could definitely write a script that looks it up by project name. I was just lazy writing the script. Yeah, that's really all I wanted to show you for this particular example. If you have any interesting questions that you want to send our way, please reach out to us at hello.octopus.com/askoctopus, or you can send us an email at support@octopus.com, or you can go ahead and join us on Slack using that link there. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Derek and Ryan, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.